I'm Shannon Keebler, and we are so excited to have you for our live tonight. We're going to talk about subtraction with ungrouping. So this is something that happens starting in second grade. First and second, kindergarten and first grade explore what it means to subtract, but they never have to do any ungrouping according to their standard. This really happens starting in second grade, and then it continues through every other grade. So we don't call it in math expressions borrowing, carrying, and we actually don't call it regrouping. We call it ungrouping when it comes to subtraction. So I wasn't able to grab my Unifix cubes, but if you think about even Unifix cubes in the squad, I do videos on this, right? And we have a group of 10 Unifix cubes, and I'll have students have individual Unifix cubes, 10 of them. And I'll say, okay, I want you to put them back into a group. So put them together. We're going to regroup them. So they take their 10 ones and they stick them all together and they make a 10 stick. And I say, okay, now as you're doing that, I want you to say, I'm regrouping into a 10. And everyone says, I'm regrouping into a 10. So especially for our English language learners. And now we have a 10 stick, all those Unifix cubes put together. And then I'll say, okay, now I want you to say, I'm ungrouping. And they all say, I'm ungrouping. And they take off every single one of those cubes, and now they have 10 individuals. And then I'll say, okay, now regroup. They stick them all together. I said, now ungroup. They take them all apart. Okay, you can do the same thing with a hundreds grid or a hundreds place value block. If you don't have place value blocks and you decide to go and buy some for your school, there are some that they come apart now. So like the place value blocks and math expressions are just foam, so they don't necessarily come apart. I saw one of our group members post about this question. She said, I actually cut apart the paper. So she does like a 10 or a hundreds block, you know, that you can just print off from your computer from online. Okay. And then she shows like actually cutting it into tens to say like, look, we took the 100 and we ungrouped it into 10 tens. Look, I can take a 10 and I can ungroup it, and they cut it apart into 10 ones. That's another great way to do it. But they do actually make place value blocks now that literally physically like snap apart. They snap together, they snap apart. So either one of those, I think we're going to think to ourselves, if our students are struggling with ungrouping, that I have to go CRA. So remember, C is concrete. I always go with a physical hands-on experience because kids will relate back to that. And for a lot of kids, they only need the experience one time. So some need to keep going back to it. But in general, I would say, 80% of your class only actually needs to do it with manipulatives once to remember it. So I'll say, okay, so do you remember when we took the Unifix cubes and we took them apart? That's what's happening here. Like when they get stuck doing their drawing or they're doing the actual numeric method. But I can always anchor back to that physical experience. Right? So that's the concrete. We're going to do it for just a moment of taking a 10, breaking it apart into 10 ones, whether you're doing it with paper, cubes, whatever you're going to do. Then I say, okay, now I'm going to give you a template or on their whiteboard, and we're only going to do the drawing. Now, I do not let them put any numbers together with this. We might use secret code cards, right? So if I share my screen here, I want to show you some of the hardships that kids have. So remember that this is a board that we might use for like fourth grade when they get into thousands, but let's just say that it's 143 and we're going to subtract 76. So first of all, I want you to notice that when I write it on the board, I always only write it horizontally because I feel like when we stack the numbers and we write this on the board and ask kids to do it, it immediately screams algorithm. Whether you're fifth grade, fourth grade, it does not matter. But when I write it horizontally, now all of a sudden students are thinking about the relationship of the numbers. So if I wrote to you 400 minus 1, I don't want you stacking those numbers and doing ungrouping. That's going to be ungrouping over double zeros. Don't raise your hand. You're not good at it. No one's good at it. It's a total nightmare to ungroup over double zeros. We have so many computational mistakes. Okay, so we're not going to do that. So let me just really quickly grab this. Let me make just sure that we are good to go. My Zoom window left me, and I want to make sure that you guys are seeing the right screen. Okay, good. So that I'm going to write those numbers here off to the side, but I'm going to write them horizontally. And I'm saying, I want you now to only draw. So I might write the equation, but it is really important that if kids understood the C, now they move to the R, and I'm not even taking them to the abstract yet because some of their moms and dads taught them over Christmas break how to do abstract, like how to do the algorithm, right? Cross off the 5 and put a 4. And it has very little number sense unless they've already done these two steps. So it doesn't mean that I avoid this. Okay. It's not that I'm avoiding writing the actual numbers over here or stacking them and showing them how to do it numerically. It just means I'm going to first make sure they really understand it here and prioritize that. Because if they already know the algorithm and then I try to get them to go back and do the picture, it's a much more difficult journey. Okay, so it's always do this. In second grade, it is your standard. It says students must use place value models. It is not even a choice. Okay, and then relate it to a numeric method. So an algorithm isn't even your like main standard, right? That's not even the standard till fourth grade to have a standard algorithm, which means one of the four that we introduce in expressions, they need to be procedurally fluent with by the end of fourth grade. But not until the end of fourth grade does the standard say they really even have to do that. So it is most important in second grade specifically that they understand the concept. So look at your standard. It says they understand the concept of regrouping and are making new groups and ungrouping groups. Okay, so if I have 143, I might use my secret code cards and I might say, okay, build that number for me. And those kids would build a 100, a 40, and a 3, so that when they stacked them, it looked like 143. Then when they turn those cards over, it has a place value drawing. So if they don't even know what to draw or they forget what 100 is, that it's 10 tens, use the place value secret code cards to build the number, turn the cards over, and now they can talk about it because on the back of the 100 card, they're going to see a hundreds block and the hundreds block has 10 tens in it. Okay, so they're going to buy here. They're going to go, okay, here's 100. Here's 40, and here's 3. Now, in the squad, I give you this math. In second grade, it only has, 2 digits, and then we introduce 3 digits. Up to fourth and fifth grade, we have it to the thousands. If you're in the squad in fourth and fifth grade, I give you a fraction version because we're going to do the same thing with fractions. Before I start stacking numbers and teaching some algorithm, we're going to first do it visually, and then we'll make the connection to the numbers. Okay, so you have to show me that you can do this visually and do it with your language before I release you to doing the algorithm. So if I have 143, I'm going to put a magnifying glass around that top number. Okay, and the reason I do that is because this is the only number I have. And the most common mistake we see is if I have 3 and I can't take away 6, according to them, then they're like, no problem, let's do 6 minus 3. Right? And I'm like, well, you don't have 76. So if I put it on a math mountain, you have 143. 76 is a part of this. You do not have 76. It comes from 143. So you only have this number. So it reminds students, I only have that number. I have to take away 76 from it. So if I want to take away 6, you're like, well, I only have 3 ones here. I'm not going to say I can't. You're telling me you have 143 M&Ms and you can't take away 6? Can't give me 6? That's a number sense issue. That's a magnitude issue. I'm like, yes, you do. The problem is you have enough. They're just grouped. So we are going to ungroup a 10 and we're going to get 10 ones. So in expressions, an X always means to ungroup. A minus sign always means to subtract because from your picture alone, I should be able to tell. So I don't let kindergartners take away by putting X's. Nope, kindergartners take away by doing a minus sign because in second grade, that minus sign still means to subtract, but the X means to ungroup. It means something totally different. So we're going to stay consistent, K6, right? So ungroup, I got 10 ones. Now I can take away 6, however you choose to do it. I'm going to take away 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 left over. Okay, now I have 3 10s left and I have to take away, 7 10s. Well, I don't have enough ungrouped, so I'm going to ungroup 100 and I'm going to get 10 10s. And I always put them in groups of 5. So I can easily now subtract. And now I know that I can take away 7 of them. Take them however you want. There's my 7. Count what's left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 left. Okay, so you start to see that when I do it first with subtraction, with ungrouping, with the blocks of just understanding what I'm doing. I'm not even really trading it. I'm really ungrouping it. I'm just taking it apart. Okay, you can use trading if you really want to, but then you're gonna say, okay, what if I did it with a picture now? Do you remember what I did that 10 stick? I took it apart and what did I get? I get 10 ones. And we're going to do problem after problem after problem using secret code cards if they don't know how to do the drawing or they don't remember that a square is 100 or 10 tens, right? So those place value deficits. And then I'm going to do the drawing, and then I connect it to Mr. and Mrs. Green's Way, which is in the teacher's guide, expanded, the ungroup from left to right, right to left. Now I say, okay, now I'm going to do it in my picture, then I do it to the numbers. So if I ungrouped the 7 10s, I put an X through the 7. I said I ungrouped them. Now I have a 10 over here. I have 16. I don't let them put a 1 in front of that 6. I make them write 16 because it's not just a 1. It's 16 ones. And then I say, you don't have 7 10s now. Now you have 6 10s. So you do it in your picture. You do it in your numeric method. You do it in your picture. You do it in the numeric method. Then as students understand it, they can do the numeric first because some of them are like, I get it now. They just want to do the numbers. Great. Do the numbers. But then now your quantity drawing becomes your proof picture. You have to prove that it's right. So there's a lot to be said about subtraction with ungrouping and why kids don't get it. I would say the number one reason is because we moved too quickly and we went to the abstract and they never had the concrete or they never had the representational. They don't really understand what's happening. And so now they're very confused. Spatially, they're kind of a nightmare. All their circles, move together, aren't spaced out. So you can use the back of the math expressions board and they do all their drawings in the square grid. So every 10 stick gets its own box. Every one circle gets its own box. You can do that. You can use the grid I have. Now, those grids I just showed you are available just, squad members, they're in your units where you teach it, okay, for fractions and whole numbers with samples. There's multiple versions. So you have the grid plus a grid with the numeric methods, like you have multiple versions of those mats. If you're not in the Math Genius squad, well, my first question is why, right? Full workshop, online self-paced workshop. Okay, so go get the squad, have your principal buy it with their title funds or with leftover funds for this year. Like I promise you, it's the best professional development you're ever going to get. So first of all, if you don't have the squad, go get it. Second of all, if you go to my site under resources, make sure you're logged in, go to Math Expressions Resources. I do have this template for even our non-Genius member folks. You can go grab it there. Bye for now.